And remember, narcissistic people actually think of themselves as really nice, fair, kind people. So that brings up shame and anger because your tears may suggest that they're being unreasonable or awful, and that's not how they want to be viewed, so they attack you some more. Has anyone ever said this to you? Why can't you just be happy for me? Have you ever heard that from a narcissistic person? Why can't you just be happy for me? It's something they will say in all kinds of different circumstances. So I'm going to give you a few examples. They may put the family finances at risk. And you're wondering if you're going to be kicked out on the street. And then something works out in their new venture. And you've been on this wild, terrifying ride with them. And while ultimately it does work out, you're still worried and still want to have a better safety plan. And instead of being their cheerleader, you may say something like, are you sure that this is going to be okay next year? And then you get back for them, why can't you just be happy for me? Another example, you get divorced from them and you have minor children. And after years, the divorce paperwork is finally signed, but the whole process was a mess, including around custody. And of course, 6 months after the divorce is final, they tell you that they're going to marry their new and probably much younger partner, or the new partner is moving in or pregnant or some riff on that. And you look at them almost unbelieving, even though you have radical acceptance, you still can't believe this shit. And your main concern is for the disruption on top of the disruptions your children have already endured and are now about to endure again, moving to a new house, a very quickly showing up pregnant new step-parent, a potentially new sibling, and they look at you as though you are some sort of killjoy monster and say, why can't you just be happy for me? This could happen with a narcissistic sibling who's embedded in a larger narcissistic family system where resources were frequently unfairly distributed. And your golden child, narcissistic sibling whose tuition was paid or who got a car as a gift at a younger age is now going to throw a lavish wedding. And this, despite your family of origin knowing that you've been struggling financially a bit, maybe you're in school or whatever the reason is. So when you are a little lukewarm about your narcissistic sibling's fairy tale wedding and all of the various costs it will entail for you to be part of this circus with no offer of any of your travel or time being paid for by this so-called generous family, the narcissistic sibling says to you, why can't you just be happy for me? Maybe you have a sort of mildly narcissistic friend who is often quite detached from how their behavior and their words affect other people. And they choose never to read the room. You may work in a similar field to them as well, and you may have been hustling hard for years, accumulating student loans and other debt. You didn't have any inside connections or family connections or an inside track, and you were also your friend's cheerleader. But she has had some advantages. A family, for example, maybe that paid for her education. And then it came to a point where you had been working for years and years on something that she just got interested in about a year before, and boom, a person she knew through her dad called another person and got her a deal that you couldn't even dream of, and a real leg up in the industry. You even felt like a bad person for not being happier for her, but it felt like an unfairness and an injustice. And she didn't seem to even have any self-reflection on her disproportionate good fortune relative to your hard work that hasn't revealed any sort of payout for you. She was sharing yet one more great thing that was happening to her while you continued slogging along. And that day you just weren't enthusiastic enough for her, and she hits back with, why can't you just be happy for me? Happiness is a very tricky topic when it comes to narcissistic relationships. Clearly, the person who is harmed by these relationships or let's call them the not narcissistic person in these relationships, is typically not happy. And happiness seems like such a faraway goal that it seems like a ridiculous conversation for survivors of these relationships. You aren't really thinking about happiness when you are so gaslighted that you don't know what day of the week it is. But narcissistic people, damn, they feel very entitled to happiness all the time. And more pointedly, they feel entitled to everyone being happy for them when things are going the way they want, even though it may not be going well for, or maybe even things are going wrong for other people, or their good news results in harm to other people. So even if their happiness is gained on the back of someone else not getting something, or someone else's feelings getting hurt, or an unfairness, or a lack of awareness about the circumstances that someone else faces, they still expect everyone to be utterly happy for them. The lack of empathy means that they don't register that maybe someone else is suffering or going through a difficult time for some reason. If things are happy for them, well, then everyone has to drop what they're doing and rally onto the rah-rah train and be happy for the narcissistic person. I am sure many of you have been there. The "why can't you just be happy for me" can also raise confusion for a person who is in a narcissistic relationship, because you're already sort of struggling with self-blame. And once again, you're wondering if you're the problem. You already were wondering if you're the problem. Like maybe you are the one who has a problem, or you're a sourpuss, or you're bitter. These are things that the narcissistic person may have already been telling you. And so then we just have to rally and not be a so-called sourpuss. The "why can't you just be happy for me" issue can start in childhood for folks who have a narcissistic parent or parents. The narcissistic parent, who really doesn't care about the needs of their child and basically subjugates the needs of everyone in the household as secondary to their own, will just go and do their own thing. And if there's protest from anyone in the family, the other parent or other people in the household, or anything less than complete and utter enthusiasm for their great golf game or a new hairstyle or their promotion that makes no sense to the kids, they only register that it means, the kids may only register that it means now that the family has to move. And even if the parents or the parent are spending time and money that really doesn't work for the given situation, right? They expect the entire family to be their cheering section. And if you aren't, you are the problem. You are the ingrate. You are the one who's selfish and doesn't care about other people. The narcissistic family system basically exists as a supply station for the narcissistic parent, nothing more. And when you gravitate away from that, you will experience their rage and manipulation. And they just expect their 5-year-old, whom they are barely attuned to be oh so happy for them, even though that poor little kid has no idea what's going on. Narcissistic people absolutely despise when people do what they perceive as raining on their parade, because those good days for them are their supply. And because they have no empathy, other people don't matter. Their feelings, their experiences, where they're at. But here's where it gets really messed up. They will throw a fuss about, "Why can't you be happy for me?" regardless of the negative impacts of this source of happiness for them. But what if something good happens for you? And odds are, if you are not narcissistic, that your good thing that happened to you didn't have a body count the way that these good things do for narcissistic people. Well, folks, it's all luck and timing. If your good thing times out in a way that there's enough good stuff happening for the narcissistic person, or your good news is not a threat to them, or they may even benefit from it, then sure, they may cheer you on a little bit, but that's pretty rare. By and large, if you have something good happen to you, the narcissistic person will pretty quickly slide into victim mode. They may feel competitive or threatened or go on about how life is unfair specifically and only to them, and believe it is unreasonable that they should have to cheer and ooh and ah for you, and they'll say that out loud. "Oh, great, now I have to be your cheering squad." So just as you are being critiqued for not being happy for them, the odds are that they have never, or if they have, rarely done that for you. I mean, narcissistic relationships are the mothership of hypocrisy, and if you push back and say that, they'll come back with, why can't you just be happy for me? When you stop and think about it, the selfishness meets entitlement meets lack of empathy is the driver here. Their entitlement to happiness and everyone signing off on it, they need the applause. And if they don't get it, then you are the problem. And that is the problem, that they will always shift blame and never take responsibility. And this whole issue is really tough when you are, for example, co-parenting kids with a narcissist who is carrying on like an adolescent or a midlife asshole. And no, you can't summon up happiness for them when you are watching your children be confused and be harmed by the juvenile manipulative antics of their other parent. Of course, this question of why can't you just be happy for me is rhetorical and unanswerable to their face. The true answer for why you can't be happy for them is because they're selfish and unaware and don't stop to think how they affect other people and that it feels unfair and imbalanced and gross. So no, you're not happy for them. You're tired of being happy for them. But you can't say that part out loud. These relationships are empty, one-way streets of inauthenticity. If you're in it, and you're going to be in it for a minute, try and summon up the best of your, wow, great, so happy for you, without it sounding entirely like you're phoning it in. If you are, again, stuck in one of these relationships and you can't easily exit, text works great for this. We can fake enthusiasm so much more on a text or an email, so try that as a first pass. You may wonder, can't I just say nothing? Of course, it really just comes down to your appetite for their why can't you be happy for me BS. Sadly, narcissistic people do pick up on sarcasm, so you have to be careful with that. And finally, no, you are not a bad person if you are not happy for them. I mean, goodness gracious, why would you be? Authenticity is about keeping it real, even when it feels a little uncomfortable. You don't have to fake your empathy for them. Like I said, you can phone it in, keep it superficial to keep the trains running. But if you genuinely aren't happy for them because of the body count of their good news, that's okay. And being honest with yourself about this stuff is essential for healing. And bonus points to you if you feel schadenfreude and want it to rain on the day of their fairy tale wedding, or that their new marriage falls apart, or that their new business fails. It's normal, and frankly, it speaks to that fighter of a you inside of you. It's not bad karma. It's a quest for justice. And to any of you who popped a bottle of champagne when things went wrong for the narcissistic person, please know that I'm right there at your side with you saying cheers. There ain't nothing wrong with celebrating that the scales even out from time to time. Don't buy into this new age prattle of your bad energy brings more bad energy. No, it doesn't. Having these moments of feeling whole and just and recognizing that this bully of a person doesn't always get their way, it can definitely lift a mountain of tension for you. But don't let this maybe I'm the problem self-blame boomerang get you. Not being happy for them is actually a power move within yourself. It means you see it clearly. Let's talk about when the narcissistic person accuses you of hurting their feelings when you are the one going through a difficult time. So have you ever had this happen? You may hold back on sharing something with a narcissistic person because in the past they have not been empathic, or they have broken your trust or broken your confidence and shared what you told them with other people when you asked them not to, or just that you know that they're going to be an asshole about it, right? If you have done that, it's actually smart. So you don't tell the narcissistic person, but maybe because you need support, you talk to other people. Or the narcissistic person finds out your bad news through some other means. And instead of the narcissistic person rolling up and being empathic because something bad happened to you, or when the day finally comes that you do share the bad news with them, and they may not know about it, but whatever happened to you happened a few weeks ago or more than just recently, and then you finally do share the news with them, what happened? You can drop in the comments what's happened when you wait to tell the narcissistic person your difficult news or bad time. But my guess is, when you did tell them, they make it about them. And common responses from the narcissistic person would be, oh my gosh, I can't believe you didn't tell me this sooner. I'm so hurt that you didn't feel you could share this with me. Or they'd say, why would you not tell me this? I feel betrayed. You told such and such before you told me. Or they might just simply say, how could you do this to me? Ultimately, everything's about them, right? Everything is about the narcissistic person, including your pain, your loss, your bad news. At a time when you need comfort, they will hold your feet to the fire as to why you didn't come to them first, and then want to have a long discussion with you about how you don't trust them and how hurt they are. It's the alternative universe of abject selfishness that is the narcissistic relationship. People have shared this happening, in particular with their narcissistic parents. They might say to them, why do you have to go talk to other people first? I'm your family. And yet in the past, when you would share something vulnerable or difficult with this parent, they would either mock you or criticize you or minimize you. And when you don't share it with the parent, they'll frame it as some form of disloyalty. You can't win. For real, that's what they will do. Now, this video and the reminder of this pattern didn't come from a very good place for me. I've recently come off from some time off. I was watching some really bad reality TV, which means lots of narcissistic people. And one show I was watching had a large cast of people, but 3 really, really, really awful narcissistic people. Like everyone on the show was narcissistic, but there were 3 that were just absolutely awful and severe. Now, one gal on the show, her husband or her boyfriend or someone like that was cheating on her. And she found out because she saw something on his phone or her phone, and she confided in other people. Now, she had a very close friend who was narcissistic, and her narcissistic friend was already being not nice by criticizing the hurt friend for not being more fun. And then there was a third party who knew everyone, who knew about the cheating and said, hey, don't be so hard on her. She's going through a tough time. And then the narcissistic friend said, she can't be going through a tough time. She hasn't said anything to me, and she tells me everything. Which in its own way was a sort of interesting twist on gaslighting. Because of course, how could her friend possibly be going through something without this narcissistic woman knowing about it? Then the narcissistic friend talked to the woman whose husband cheated on her. The cheated on woman is devastated. She is crying. She is very fragile. And the narcissistic woman, who was supposed to be her friend, is actually quite cold and hits her with, I can't believe you didn't tell me. I am so hurt. I mean, seriously. And this vein continued for a while, to the point that the poor cheated on woman did call her out. And of course, the narcissistic woman gaslighted her, and it was all a mess. It was really a train wreck to witness. But this angle, and it reminded me that we don't talk about this on this channel yet, happens in every kind of narcissistic relationship imaginable. This happens in intimate relationships and friendships with narcissistic family members. Somehow people who feel entitled to your pain, to your devastation, to your difficult times, who will often then, upon learning those, either judge you or tell you that you're being too dramatic or exaggerating, too sensitive, or they might ask you, what did you do to make this bad thing happen? Or they will turn around and tell other people what you shared with them without your consent. And then when you are angry or hurt that they betrayed your confidence, will tell you that you are self-important, or you exaggerate, or you make too big a thing out of things, or do you really think anyone cares, as though you are overreacting for calling them out on their betrayal and you're already going through something difficult. What's tough is that when you are in a narcissistic relationship, you're hurt on a regular basis, and you learn the hard way to not share your feelings, your hurt, your pain with the narcissistic person. But other stuff goes wrong in your life as well. Life happens. Things happen in your life that may not at all relate, per se, to the narcissistic person. And as part of your firewalling and learning how to manage the narcissistic relationship, you don't share this bad stuff with them either. You learn to hold back on the bad news. That's an important part of discernment. However, if the narcissistic person gets wind of the fact that you didn't share your bad news with them because they have zero insight into the fact that they lack all compassion or kindness or empathy, and they think they're wonderful, helpful people, so when you hold back on sharing a painful experience, it will then deteriorate into it all being about you being the one who's a bad person. Forget the damned reality show. I actually went through this recently around a professional issue, and someone close-ish to me just doesn't know how to be. And I don't know that they're even narcissistic or entitled for sure, but maybe they're definitely antagonistic, right? But when I would bring my professional vulnerabilities to this person, they were basically a 5-star a-hole. So I went firewall on them, and I stopped sharing. And they overheard me sharing a struggle I had recently had. And once I got off the phone, they were huffing and puffing as though I had done something wrong. They were angry that I didn't bring the problem to them, despite their track record of acting aggro and huffy and judgy. I am too old to care anymore, and I told them exactly why I didn't share that with them and why I shared it with that other person, and they lost it. They were already losing it, so it was just a new level of losing it. But it was a reminder that even when you employ the disengagement techniques that I've talked about on this channel to manage the toxic, difficult relationships in your life, that there will still be hell to pay. And the entitlement of the narcissistic person means that the toxic folks feel that they are entitled to a play-by-play of your life and also to speak their mind and judge you. Interestingly, the reality TV person and the person in my life both said, "You don't like what I have to say because you're too weak to hear the truth." Okay. There are some central core truths to the narcissistic relationship. Fundamental amongst these are that they don't change, that you can never win, that they think that they are empathic, nice people. It's the painful, confusing truth of these personalities and these relationships. But if you have had this experience of having the narcissistic person come at you when you don't decide to go to them first with your bad news, because they're going to humiliate and criticize your reaction about it, and they have no empathy for your hurt, you're not alone. And no, you do not owe them or anyone the privilege of hearing your vulnerable hurts and pains. Yes, the narcissistic people will always be awful when you share this kind of information with them. And I still hold to my position that you do not want to share the hurtful aspects of your life with them until you have worked some of it through with more empathic folks. Then, when they do learn it, or you do share it, be prepared that they will make your heartache, your pain, and your loss about them. So, where do your emotional reactions go when you lose them after you've experienced narcissistic abuse? So, let's start this with an example so you know what I mean. You have a narcissistic person in your life and they say they want to talk to you about something, and they start. But really, they aren't talking with you about something. They're going on a tirade about you, or they're complaining about your friends, or they're complaining about something you did, or yelling at you about something you said, and they just keep going and going as they're able to do. They may even say things that are just downright mean. The narcissistic person in your life may be trying to make a point, say things like, oh, I feel like you're never there for me. You're always working and busy with the kids' activities, and you don't seem interested in me, and you never listen when I talk to you, and I feel like you don't give a damn about me after all I do for you, and all you do is spend our money and demand more. And all this shit that they're saying, none of it's true. And it's also likely that they do not even come close if they're complaining like this to you of holding up any kind of equity in the household, right? Maybe the narcissistic person goes on to say like, oh, you say you want to go on this vacation and then have your friends come and meet us up there, after the first week. You're so damn selfish. And you listen to what they have to say. But it's hurtful, the things they're saying. A lot of what they're saying is probably untrue. But you learned long ago, as we learn these relationships, to not fight back, so you stay quiet. But you're hurt. And if you, after having sat through this long enough, you might get some tears in your eyes. And then they notice, and they'll say to you, oh, no way, I'm talking to you, now you're making this about you? Well, which is ironic, because it kind of is about you, since they're criticizing. But what they mean is that it's their rant. And how dare you have any emotion or show any kind of reaction to what they're saying. So have you ever had anything like that happen to you? If so, you can drop it in the comments if you want. But so you having a feeling about someone coming at you, yelling, screaming, you having a reaction is in essence you being selfish and making it all about you. So remember, experiencing emotion is as natural as sneezing. We can't really stop it. We have emotions. It's what human beings do. Emotion is a signal. Emotion can be negative. It can be positive. It can feel good. It can feel bad. It can prepare us to protect ourselves. It can also lead us to relax. And sadly, starting in childhood for many children, there are skewed messages about emotional expression that children get. Boys are often taught that they shouldn't express emotion or anger is the only one that's allowable. And there's guardrails too. You can't have too much emotion. You shouldn't have the wrong kind of emotion. Anger in general is often frowned upon in children. Sadness is treated as an emotion that makes other people uncomfortable. So you get the idea. Emotion's a very thorny space. Now, the more authentic we can be with our emotions, the healthier we are. It really is that simple. And then when you throw into the mix also that emotional regulation is a major part of being a healthy human being, having an emotion and then learning appropriate ways of expressing it. And obviously all of this, the regulation, all the rest of it, is a huge problem in narcissistic relationships. Narcissistic people are terrible at appropriately expressing emotion, at regulating it, at being vulnerable with it, and as a result, people in narcissistic relationships also have their own increasingly confusing and problematic experiences with emotion. Now, emotion tells a story on a person's face, frankly, without that person saying a word. We can look at someone's face and we can slowly watch a frown or a smile take in, a sparkling of the eyes, tears when someone is sad. We can read hundreds of subtle emotions without a person saying a word. And here's where it gets interesting and really kind of perilous. Even though narcissistic people are coming up short, very short, in the empathy department, they can actually read emotion and very well, and they're very socially attuned, though they often misinterpret the emotions they read, or they pathologize it, or they feel like it's attacking them. They are able to register these subtle shifts on a person's face. So when you are in a narcissistic relationship, you may spend lots of time trying to read the narcissistic person's moods and face, their emotions. Try to anticipate by looking at them if it's going to be a good day or not. Are they angry or not? Is it going to be, is the evening going to go okay? You actually spend so much time trying to read theirs that you may lose track of your own. So you're being very careful in the relationship. You're often trying to study the narcissistic person to be prepared for what kind of day it's going to be. And at the same time, they're probably also noticing your emotions. And the whole thing is quite distorted. Because in fact, if two people were actually healthily attuned to each other's emotions, not in a paranoid or anxious way, but in a healthy way, then that's actually the core of a healthy relationship. But that is not what's happening in a narcissistic relationship. This is instead something that feels like a game of espionage, making sure that you're safe and them scanning you, but they are looking at you and construing you in sort of a paranoid manner to make sure that you aren't showing emotions that they aren't okay with, right? So this takes us to a major emotional issue that often arises in narcissistic relationships, which is what happens when you actually have a visible emotional reaction to something that the narcissistic person is saying or doing. Perhaps the narcissistic person says something that hurts you. And like I said, that hurt registers on your face, or maybe tears come to your eyes. You can't even stop them. Maybe the narcissistic person or a narcissistic group of people say something that angers you, and that anger registers on your face. But more often than not, the emotion that is registering across your face, the thing that they're going to notice is likely to be intense sadness or hurt. And this is where it gets very messed up. The narcissistic person, very likely what you're reacting to, especially it's with tears or hurt, they're likely sharing something, saying something in a hurtful way, criticizing you, giving you some form of mean feedback, anything like that, right? And like a normal person, you have a reaction to that, especially because the mean jabbing really never ends in a narcissistic relationship. It's sort of a constant. You may even try like hell to control that reaction. You don't want them to see your tears. You try to swallow the tears. You kind of look back so those tears drain back in your eyes. You make some excuse about having allergies as that sort of glistening thing happens in your eyes. Try to smile through your hurt reaction, whatever it is. But it's clear. And you know damn well that the more you try to control the reaction that is coming up on you, the more that it comes up on you. Now, the narcissistic person really wants to emotionally pummel the other person in these conversations, but not have them react. They may, however, be open to you yelling, and then a lot of yelling back and forth, and it getting to be an escalating, screaming argument, so they can also say, look, you're an unhinged asshole too. And if you don't like conflict, you're not going to go there, right? But when this happens, when your emotional reaction to being attacked or criticized or lied to is normal, things like tears or sadness, you are told that you're being egocentric and selfish. You're making it about you. And that means that that's what you learn, and it becomes ingrained in you that having a feeling or having a reaction to anything is selfish. And that you learn then, when a person emotionally abuses you, that you have to stoically sit there and take it. So you may wonder, why does this happen in these interactions? Well, there's a few reasons. At the time the narcissistic person is yelling at you or criticizing you or gaslighting you, who the hell knows what triggered them, right? Frankly, at most times, who the hell knows what triggers them? But to them, you're not a person, right? You're an object. So it's kind of like human stuff like emotion is not supposed to be coming out of you, least of all emotion that they're not interested in. Secondly, your negative emotions or sadness can actually bring up shame for the narcissistic person, because your tears are kind of showing this idea that they're being bad, they're not being nice. And remember, narcissistic people actually think of themselves as really nice, fair, kind people. So that brings up shame and anger, because your tears may suggest that they're being unreasonable or awful, and that's not how they want to be viewed, so they attack you some more. Also, they want to be able to have their rant, their temper tantrum, and then for it to all be out of them. And most of you have watched that happen in one of these relationships. Narcissistic people rage and scream and yell and manipulate and gaslight. The people around them are hurt and harmed, and then they're done. It's like they threw up, and now they're relieved, and so now they kind of act like nothing happened, while everyone around them or you feel hollowed out and scared, and then they'll be like, oh gosh, stop making such a big deal about it. It's over. Like, I'm not doing that anymore. And that's on the heels of you being told that when you were crying or upset, that you were making everything about you. What do you do about this? Folks, there's no fix here. Realistic expectations and the radical acceptance that this is going to happen in these relationships can prepare you, can make it a little less jarring or startling or surprising. And it will suck and you can't stop feeling. So yeah, you're going to feel hurt. I personally navigate this in narcissistic relationships I still have to maintain. And this is where that idea of multiple truths matter. This is a them thing. Their behavior is not okay. I understand why they're behaving like this. It hurts me, and I'm struggling, and that it makes sense to be hurt when someone behaves like this. And while understanding the narcissism piece helps, it doesn't make any of this more comfortable while it's happening in real time. But when you are told that your normal reactions, like having tears to hurtful words, means that you are making something about you, well, that's a crock of shit. The healthy emotional dance that two people, or more than two people, can have with each other means that emotion gets to be expressed on both sides. And while emotional conversations may not always be easy, when there's healthy people involved, they can happen with both people feeling heard and neither person feeling silenced. However, this cannot happen in a narcissistic relationship. Should you show emotion, prepare to be shamed, humiliated, shut down, and told that you're selfish. So, what happened the last time you were really nice to a narcissistic person? I'm sure for some of you it went well. But for some of you, did the narcissist get angry? So let's talk about that. Some of you may be thinking, you know what I'm going to do with this narcissistic person? I'm just going to kill him with kindness. I am not going to let this antagonistic person get me down. I am just going to be super nice, and I'm not going to let them shut down this kindness that is a part of me. I'm a nice person. So you are with the narcissist, and you remain cheerful and warm, kind, smiling, no matter how they may snipe at you, grump at you, sneer at you, and have overall contempt for your kindness and warmth. Some of you may have just an inherent nature that is simply kind. So you are kind to people. It's what you do. Unfortunately, it was something that really put you in harm's way in a narcissistic relationship. Now, what gets interesting is that narcissistic people can be quite suspicious of kindness. They may view it as sucker behavior. But what I have been told by a few people in narcissistic relationships is that the narcissistic person would angrily ask them if they were being sarcastic. Let me say a little bit more about that. So you're being nice. Okay, just being nice to them. Hey, how are ya? And they turn to you and they're like, what do you want? And they think you're being sarcastic. I know I repeat myself, but I believe as a teacher, repetition gets the point home. They don't really care about who you are, right? You're just there in their service. Now, you may then think, okay, if that's the case, then why wouldn't they want me to be nice? It feels better for me if I am nice, even though sometimes I'm sad in this relationship. But when I am nice, the narcissistic person tells me that I'm being sarcastic or they're suspicious of me. And I'm genuinely not being sarcastic. It's not performative. I'm nice. It's very difficult for a narcissistic person to identify with or understand a behavioral, emotional, or even a cognitive space that they don't occupy, that they don't know. And needless to say, nice is not a place that they understand or know. However, they know what they do know, and they do understand manipulation. They understand trying to get something over on someone. For them, someone being nice may represent a play, a seduction, a love bomb, closing a sale, getting something from someone. So is it any wonder they would push back on your or anyone else's niceness? Nice may represent weakness or manipulation to them. And neither of those are good for them or anyone, frankly. So it makes sense that they would go right to the place of thinking that your niceness could be a manipulation, because oftentimes that's what their niceness is. That leaves you in this place of, what the hell am I supposed to do? I could be an a-hole, even though that doesn't come naturally to me, but then they're going to lose it if I'm an a-hole to them. Or I could be my usual nice self, But then they're going to write me off as being sarcastic, or they'll just be suspicious of me. So in a way, it doesn't matter who you are because they aren't really noticing the true you. However, your niceness not only will be viewed with suspicion or contempt, but may even evoke shame. Remember, narcissistic people are not psychotic and can be angry at themselves for not being able to participate in the niceness, or at some deep, unprocessed level, know that they can't do it. I recently had an experience like that. For all of my narcissism angriness, and I know I come off as angry sometimes, I'm actually a relatively agreeable person. And I wake up each day promising to give it an old college try to be a kind person. I happen to be talking with someone who's often pretty antagonistic with me. So I took a deep breath before our conversation. And in a very intentional way, I brought myself into the conversation with a bright and cheerful, "Hey, how are you?" The first response from that person was, "What is it? What's going on? What's the problem? What's wrong with you?" I said, "Nothing. I'm just saying good afternoon. I just want to hear how your day is." And they kept furrowing their brow and said, "Sure, okay," rather abruptly, like, "Yeah, I'm fine." It didn't feel good. Now, I got to tell you, I was mildly dreading having to deal with this person in the first place, but I brought my warmest self to it because I thought that was better. And I was still ending up in the same place as always with them. If I had shown any anger or consternation at this person's constant contentiousness, then I would have been met with, "Ah, my God, why are you such a grump?" If I had been nice to this person, then I was looked at suspiciously like I had a problem. The only win on the nice part was that I felt better. I recognized that I took the variable out of the equation, which was my occasional grumpiness. So it was all them at that point. Didn't change them, but it reassured me that it wasn't me. To tell someone who is genuinely being nice that they are being sarcastic or manipulative or just being suspicious of their niceness, folks, that's a form of gaslighting. It's an untrue accusation that devalues what's happening. But I'm still always going to be a fan of coming down on the nice side of things. As I said, it lifts a variable. Because here's the deal. If you showed up glum, understandable, given how the conversation may go, so like, "Hey, how are you?" They're going to tell you you're such a downer. If you show up irritable or on edge, they will call you a pain in the ass or something to that effect. Or they'll get more irritable with you or say, "Why are you so difficult?" If you show up nice, you're viewed with suspicion. So you may as well choose a path forward that feels right and good to you. And frankly, even with the nice folks, if we could see that thought bubble above nice folks' heads, my guess is it would not be fit for prime time. Because I can tell you this now, if somebody saw a thought bubble over my head when I was being nice to that person who was being grumpy and suspicious, definitely not something I could say in public. So it's that idea that no matter how nice you are, and they're like, what? And it's that almost an allergy to that. Since you can't win, might as well just be yourself. Hope that's helpful. Thanks again.